The rain had started just as I pulled into the driveway. I checked the clock on the dashboard. 11:42 p.m. My best friend, Daniel, had called me 20 minutes earlier. "Can you take Mom home? I'm stuck at work. She's had a rough night." I had known Daniel's mother, Claire, for almost 10 years. She had always treated me like family, remembering my birthday, sending me home with leftovers, and asking about my life whenever I visited. So when I saw her standing outside the restaurant, holding a small umbrella and looking exhausted, I immediately stepped out. "Need a ride?" She smiled faintly. "I was hoping you'd ask." The drive started quietly. Rain tapped against the windshield as the city lights blurred into long golden streaks. Claire sat in the passenger seat, staring out the window. "You okay?" I asked. She nodded. Then, after a moment, she whispered, "I just don't want to go home yet." I glanced at her. "Everything okay?" She gave a tired laugh. "Home is just, very quiet lately." I didn't know what to say. Her husband had passed away 2 years earlier, and since then, I had noticed something changing in her. She smiled less. She stayed home more. Even Daniel worried about her, though he rarely admitted it. I turned down the radio. "We can take the long way." Claire looked at me. "Would you?" "Of course." For the next 15 minutes, we drove through the quiet streets. She told me stories about Daniel when he was little, how he once tried to fix the family television with a butter knife, how he cried when his first goldfish died, and how he had always pretended to be braver than he really was. I laughed. "You never told me these stories." "Daniel would be horrified if he knew. He already has enough embarrassing stories." She smiled, and for the first time that night, her eyes looked lighter. Eventually, we reached her neighborhood. I slowed down near her house. "That's me," she said softly. I pulled toward the curb. But before I stopped, she placed a hand lightly on my arm. "Let's take one more loop, please." Her voice was barely above a whisper. I looked at her, surprised. "Sure." I drove past her house. For another 10 minutes, neither of us spoke. Then Claire finally broke the silence. "You know what I miss most?" "What?" "Being someone people wanted around." I frowned. "Claire, that's not true." She looked down at her hands. "Daniel has his career. His friends. His life. And you have yours. Everyone is moving forward." I shook my head. "You're not being left behind." She looked at me. "You came tonight." I smiled. "Of course I came." Her eyes filled with tears. I needed someone to remind me that I still mattered. The words hit me harder than I expected. "You matter to Daniel. You matter to me. You matter to a lot of people." She took a slow breath. "Thank you." We finally returned to her street. Before getting out, she turned toward me. "I know you're Daniel's best friend," she said. "But tonight, you weren't driving me home because he asked you to." I waited. "You stayed because you cared." I nodded. "Yeah. I did." She smiled. Then she opened the door. "Good night." "Good night, Claire." She walked toward her front door, then stopped and looked back. For a second, neither of us moved. Then she smiled and disappeared inside. I sat in the car for another minute, listening to the rain. My phone buzzed. A message from Daniel. "Thanks for taking Mom home." She sounded happier when she called me. I looked toward Claire's house. Then I smiled. Sometimes, someone doesn't need you to fix their life. Sometimes, they just need you to take one more loop around the block, and remind them they don't have to face the silence alone. The next morning, I woke up to 3 missed calls from Daniel. For a moment, I thought something had happened to Claire. I called him back immediately. "Hey, what's going on?" There was silence on the other end. Then Daniel said, "Mom told me about last night." My stomach tightened. "What did she say?" "She said you drove around with her because she didn't want to go home." "Yeah." Another pause. "She also said you made her feel better." I leaned back against my pillow. "I'm glad." Daniel laughed quietly. "Actually, I wanted to thank you." "You already did." "No. I mean it." His voice suddenly sounded serious. "She hasn't laughed like that in months." I didn't know what to say. After we hung up, I got ready for work. Around noon, my phone buzzed. It was Claire. "Thank you for last night." I stared at the message for several seconds before replying. "You don't have to thank me. I'm glad I stayed." Her response came almost immediately. "Would you mind doing something for me?" "Sure." "What?" Three dots appeared. Then disappeared. Then appeared again. Finally, she wrote, "Can we have coffee sometime?" "Just coffee." "I owe you a proper thank you." I smiled. "Of course." That Saturday, I met Claire at a small cafe near the park. She was already sitting by the window when I arrived. "You're early," I said. She smiled. I was nervous. "Nervous?" She laughed. "I don't usually ask people to meet me like this." We ordered coffee and talked for nearly 2 hours. Nothing romantic. Nothing inappropriate. Just two people talking. She told me about her dreams of traveling again. I told her about a promotion I was hoping to get. We laughed about Daniel and the ridiculous things he used to do as a teenager. Then Claire became quiet. "You know," she said, "Daniel always told me you were the one person he trusted completely." I looked down at my coffee. "He's my best friend." "I know." She smiled. "And that's why I want to tell you something before this gets complicated." I looked at her. "Complicated?" She nodded. "People can misunderstand things." My heart began beating faster. "Claire, if you're worried about Daniel, I'm not." She gently shook her head. "I'm worried about myself." I said nothing. She looked out the window. "Last night reminded me that I still enjoy being around people. I still enjoy laughing. I still want to live instead of simply getting through the days." Then she turned back to me. "And I don't want to confuse gratitude with something else." I nodded slowly. "I understand." She smiled. "Good." For a moment, everything felt normal again. Then the cafe door opened. Daniel walked inside. He spotted us immediately. His expression changed. He walked toward our table. "Mom?" Claire froze. I stood up. "Daniel, I can explain." He looked between us. Then he sighed. "I know." "You know?" He pulled out a chair. "I knew you two were meeting." Claire looked surprised. "You did?" Daniel smiled. "I actually asked him to take you home that night." Then he looked at me. And honestly, he grinned. "I think you two needed that conversation more than either of you realized." Claire's eyes filled with tears. Daniel reached across the table and took her hand. "Mom, you don't have to be alone anymore." She squeezed his fingers. And for the first time, I understood something. That night wasn't about romance. It wasn't about secrets. It was about a lonely woman remembering that her life wasn't over. And somehow, one simple drive through the rain had become the first turn towards something neither of us expected. 3 weeks passed. Life seemed normal again. Daniel went back to work. I went back to my routine. Claire started going out more, joining a local book club and meeting old friends she hadn't seen in years. But every Friday evening, she sent me the same message. Coffee? And every Friday, I answered, absolutely. There was something comforting about those evenings. We talked about everything except the one thing neither of us wanted to name. Until one Friday night, Claire didn't show up. I waited 20 minutes. Then 30. I called her. No answer. I called Daniel. He answered immediately. What's wrong? Your mom didn't come to coffee. There was a pause. She didn't tell you? Tell me what? Daniel sighed. She went to see Dad's old house. I knew exactly what he meant. After his father died, Claire had refused to return to the house where they had spent most of their marriage. It had been sitting empty for nearly 2 years. Why would she go there alone? She said she needed closure. I grabbed my keys. Where is it? Daniel gave me the address. When I arrived, the front door was open. Claire? No answer. I walked inside. The house was dark and dusty. Then I heard a sound from upstairs. I followed it. Claire was standing in the old bedroom, holding a framed photograph of her and her husband. She turned when she saw me. What are you doing here? Daniel called. She smiled sadly. I suppose he still worries too much. He loves you. I know. She looked around the room. I thought coming here would hurt less after 2 years. Does it? She shook her head. No, I stood beside her. She wiped a tear from her cheek. I've spent 2 years trying to prove that I'm okay. You don't have to prove anything. She looked at me. That night in your car, her voice trembled. I realized I wasn't okay. I waited. But I also realized I didn't want to stay broken. She placed the photograph back on the dresser. I want to sell this house. I smiled. That sounds like a good idea. It is. Then she looked directly at me. But there's another reason I asked you to come here. My smile disappeared. What reason? She took a slow breath. I've been afraid to tell you. Tell me. She stepped closer. I care about you. I froze. Claire, I know. She raised her hand. I'm not asking you for anything. I know you're Daniel's best friend. I know the age difference. I know exactly how complicated this could become. I swallowed. Then why tell me? Because I don't want another 2 years to pass while I'm afraid of being honest. The room became completely silent. I looked at the woman who had once been simply my best friend's mother. But now I saw something different. Not a lonely widow. Not someone who needed saving. A woman who had found the courage to begin again. I care about you too, I finally said. Her eyes filled with tears. But we have to be careful, I continued. Especially because of Daniel. She nodded. I agree. We stood there quietly. Then my phone rang. Daniel. I answered. Hey. His voice was strangely calm. Are you with Mom? I looked at Claire. Yes. Another pause. Then Daniel said something I never expected. Good. I frowned. Good? I've known for weeks. Claire's eyes widened. You knew? Daniel laughed. Mom, you're terrible at hiding your feelings. She covered her face. Daniel, he continued. I don't care what happens between you two. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. As long as you're both happy. Claire started crying. I smiled. Then Daniel added one final sentence. But if you hurt my mom, I'll make you regret it. I laughed. Fair enough. We ended the call. Claire looked at me. What now? I thought about that rainy night. The empty streets. Her whisper. Let's take one more loop, please. I smiled. Now? I held out my hand. We take things 1 mile at a time. She took my hand. And together, we walked out of the old house. For the first time in years, Claire didn't look back. She didn't need to. Her past would always be part of her story. But it didn't have to be the ending. Sometimes, life gives you a second chance in the most unexpected way. Sometimes, it begins with a simple ride home. And sometimes, someone whispers, let's take one more loop.